Most of us are taught that sleep is nothing more than rest, a nightly reset for the body. But what if that story was never the truth? What if the hours you spend with your eyes closed are not empty, but alive with meaning, moments when the soul is most awake? Every culture that dared to look deeper hinted at this secret. The Egyptians spoke of it, the mystics whispered of it, and Thoth himself warned that sleep was never just escape. He called it a gate, a passage through which the soul travels, whether you are aware of it or not. Think back to the nights you jolted awake with a sense of falling, or the mornings when fragments of dreams clung to you with a weight you couldn't explain. These aren't accidents of the brain. They are signals that something inside you is moving beyond the ordinary. They are reminders that behind the silence of your pillow lies an entire landscape waiting to be explored. So tonight, before you drift off, consider this question: what does your soul see when your eyes close? Have you ever felt yourself awaken in the middle of a dream, aware that you were more than a sleeper? If you have, you already know the truth that sleep is not the end of awareness. It is the beginning of a journey, one that might reveal more about who you are than the hours you spend awake. There is a moment each night when your body surrenders to the pull of rest, but your awareness hasn't completely let go. You felt it before lying in bed. Your breathing slows, your limbs turn heavy, and yet some part of you is still listening. This is not simply drifting off, it is the crossing of a threshold. Modern science calls it the hypnagogic state, but those who looked deeper saw something more. They called it a veil, a sacred curtain between the physical and the metaphysical, where the soul begins to slip its tether. Imagine standing at the edge of two worlds. One foot is planted firmly in the material, the other already testing the waters of the unseen. In that fragile in-between, shapes and sounds blur. You may hear voices that aren't there, see colors swirling behind your eyelids, or feel as if you're falling through empty space. These are not hallucinations in the dismissive sense. They are signals that your consciousness is loosening its grip on ordinary reality. What feels like chaos to the rational mind is, to the soul, the first step of initiation. For centuries, the Tibetans treated this passage as a form of training in dream yoga. Practitioners learned to remain aware as the body drifted towards sleep. They recited mantras, focused on the breath, and cultivated a calm watchfulness so that when the veil descended, they crossed it consciously. To them, this was not just preparation for lucid dreaming, but rehearsal for death itself, the great sleep, the great awakening. If you could stay present in the moment when your senses shut down and your body grew still, you could stay present when your soul detached entirely. Think back to the times you've jolted awake with a sudden drop, as if you had fallen off a cliff. Think about that hovering sensation, the float just before you slip into darkness. Most people dismiss it as the body misfiring, a trick of nerves. But in the mystery traditions, those moments are whispers from the soul, small rehearsals of its nightly departure. The falling is not an accident. It is the sensation of leaving. The floating is not confusion. It is a reminder that you are more than flesh pressed into sheets. This is why the ancients insisted that sleep was never a shutdown. It was a doorway, and standing in that doorway requires a different kind of attention, one that is not frantic but reverent. To enter the gate with fear is to tumble blindly. To enter with awareness is to realize that what waits beyond is not random, not meaningless, but shaped by the quality of your own energy. The veil does not hide the truth. It reveals whether you are ready to meet it. In your own life, you may have brushed this threshold countless times without ever naming it. Every time you woke up with a half-remembered image that lingered all morning, every time you felt the strange pull of déjà vu, you were touching the edges of this sacred crossing. The world told you it was nothing, a quirk of the brain, but deep down, you sensed otherwise. You sensed that your soul had been somewhere, had seen something, and was urging you not to forget. The gate between sleep and awakening is not only a passage for the night, it is a practice for the day. To learn how to meet it with clarity, to pause and breathe as the veil descends, is to train yourself to live more awake even while you are conscious. It is to remember that you are never only the body, never only the mind, but a traveler moving between realms, again and again, every single night. And tonight, when the silence gathers and your eyelids grow heavy, you will stand before that gate once more. The question is, will you stumble through unaware, or will you recognize the veil for what it is? The first invitation to awaken. Every night when you close your eyes, something extraordinary happens, something you may never see, but you have almost certainly felt. There is an invisible tether, a shining thread of energy that stretches from your body to your soul. The ancients called it the silver cord. Without it, your nightly journeys would never bring you back. With it, you wake each morning, your spirit safely returned to flesh. Near-death survivors speak of this cord with striking consistency. They describe hovering above hospital beds, watching doctors work on their lifeless forms, yet still feeling a delicate line of light binding them to their bodies. Some said it shimmered like quicksilver, others like a rope woven from starlight. No matter the description, the meaning was the same. As long as the cord held, they were not lost. It is the soul's lifeline, the assurance that your journey beyond the veil is not a one-way crossing, but like any thread, it can fray. Trauma leaves its mark, not only on the body, but on this connection between worlds. Emotional wounds that go unhealed, substances that cloud the mind, even years of heavy stress. They weaken the cord's vibrancy. That is why some mornings you rise feeling drained, as if sleep took more from you than it gave. The body rested, but the soul returned weary, its tether tugged thin by the weight of unresolved pain. You may already know the sensation, that sudden jolt awake, the heart racing, the feeling of having been dropped back into yourself. Science calls it a hypnic jerk. The mystery traditions saw it differently. They believed it was your soul being pulled abruptly home, the cord snapping you back into place after drifting too far. These moments are not accidents. They are proof that something greater than muscle and nerve is at work, keeping you alive in ways your eyes cannot see. The good news is that the silver cord is not fragile beyond repair. It responds to care, to reverence, to intention. When you meditate before sleep, steadying your breath and centering your thoughts, you draw the cord into alignment. When you visualize it glowing bright and strong, anchored to your crown, your heart, your spine, you feed it with attention, and attention is energy. Simple rituals like cleansing your space, saying a prayer, or imagining yourself wrapped in protective light signal to the unseen that you honor this tether. And what you honor strengthens. Think of it like setting a beacon before a voyage. If your ship must sail through dark waters, you want the rope tying you to the shore to be solid. You want to know that no matter how strange the seas become, you will find your way back. That is what the silver cord offers every single night. It is your unseen anchor, your guarantee of return, the quiet thread of safety that allows your soul to wander without fear. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, take a moment to acknowledge it. Close your eyes and imagine the strand of silver, luminous and alive, stretching from your body into the unseen. See it pulsing with light, resilient, untouchable. Let that image settle in your mind as you drift off, because when you choose to protect the cord, you are not just securing your journey, you are choosing to wake in the morning more whole, more grounded, and more connected to who you truly are. Most of us slip into sleep each night believing it is a safe harbor, a neutral pause between days. But what if it isn't neutral at all? What if, the moment your consciousness drifts, you're stepping into a territory where not everything wishes you well? The ancients warned of this. They spoke of the night as a battleground, a place where the unprepared soul could be led astray, manipulated, even harvested. Sleep, they said, can be a trap for those who enter blindly. Think of the times you've woken in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, your heart pounding, unable to shake the echo of a nightmare, running through endless corridors, chased by something you couldn't see, falling into darkness with no bottom. These images feel universal because they are across cultures, across centuries. People report the same dreams, and here's the unsettling truth. They may not be random at all. Some of the most engaged voices in the comments of videos like this are quick to point it out. My nightmares stopped when I started protecting my spiritual energy. Or what if these dreams are engineered? they're noticing patterns, and they're right to wonder, because in many traditions, nightmares are not meaningless glitches of the brain. They are contact points, crafted experiences designed to provoke fear. Why? Because fear feeds something. In the world beyond the veil, emotion is currency, and fear pays well. It is here that the soul, unaware of the rules, becomes a passenger. Instead of guiding the journey, you are pulled along by forces you don't recognize, reacting to scenarios that drain you without your consent. You wake heavy, foggy, exhausted, not because your body failed to rest, but because your energy was siphoned in the night. It is no accident that nightmares so often carry the themes of helplessness, being hunted, falling, losing control. They are stories written to harvest reaction, but there is another way. Awareness is the first shield. To recognize that not every dream is your own creation is to take back the first measure of power. When you become curious about your nightmares, when you journal them, when you ask what they are trying to trigger in you, the script begins to break. What was once manipulation becomes information. You stop being prey and you start becoming a witness. So tonight, before you close your eyes, pause, ask yourself, what am I bringing with me into the dream? Fear, stress, confusion, all of these can weigh you down into the lower realms, but clarity, calm, intention, they carry you higher. The trap only works on the unaware. The moment you decide to step into sleep as a participant, not a passenger, the game changes. And if you've ever had one of those relentless nightmares, the chase, the fall, the unseen terror, I invite you to share it. You're not alone in this. The patterns matter. Your story may be the key that helps someone else see the hidden structure behind their own dreams. Because once we start naming the trap, it loses its hold. And once you know how to recognize it, you will never enter sleep the same way again. Every culture that took dreams seriously spoke of maps, blueprints of invisible realms that souls cross every night. They were not maps drawn on parchment or carved into stone. They were vibrational landscapes, layered like frequencies on a radio dial, each one more subtle and more revealing than the last. The ancients described three main territories: the etheric, the astral, and the mental. Together, they form a kind of hidden geography, and whether you realize it or not, you've traveled through them countless times. The etheric is the closest to the waking world. It feels familiar, yet bent and distorted, like walking through a mirror that reflects not just what is, but what is unresolved. Streets twist into impossible paths, faces morph into one another, buildings shift like clay molded by memory. This is the place of echoes, where leftover emotions and half-formed thoughts linger. It's why so many dreams feel strange but recognizable, as if you're wandering through the residue of your own life. Carl Jung believed recurring dreams were not mistakes, but unfinished lessons, messages from the soul knocking again until you finally listen. In the etheric, those lessons take shape, begging for attention. Beyond this lies the astral plane, the true playground of dreamers. Here, thought and feeling are not just influences, they are architects. If you're afraid, the sky darkens. If you're joyful, light floods the horizon. It is a realm shared with others, populated by entities and fragments, guides and tricksters alike, and it is here that lucid dreaming becomes more than entertainment. When you realize you're dreaming, you shift from passenger to pilot. You can choose, explore, ask, and learn. Lucidity is not a novelty, it is training, a rehearsal for conscious living and even for conscious dying. It teaches you that reality bends to the energy you bring. The highest layer described is the mental plane, a domain of pure knowledge, a vibrational library often equated with the Akashic records. Few reach it, and fewer still remember it. But those who do speak of clarity beyond language, impressions that feel like lifetimes of wisdom compressed into a single moment. In this space, questions are not answered with words, but with understanding. Healing is not spoken, it is felt. To touch this plane is to glimpse why you are here and what your soul has carried across ages. If all this sounds like fantasy, ask yourself why the same dream landscapes appear again and again across cultures and centuries. Why do so many people report the same sensations of flight, of falling, of being tested? Why do thousands of dream journals reveal similar patterns? Because the terrain is real, even if it isn't physical, and every night you are mapping it, whether you write it down or not. This is why keeping a dream journal matters. Each entry is a breadcrumb trail, a way of training your memory to hold on to what the soul already knows. Over time, patterns emerge, the same hallways, the same symbols, the same unresolved fears. These are not random, they are coordinates. They are your personal map of the invisible. So imagine yourself not as a sleeper tonight, but as a traveler. You are carrying a compass made of intention, a lantern lit with awareness, and a map still being drawn. Every dream, whether confusing or beautiful, adds another line to that map. And the more you pay attention, the clearer the geography becomes. The question is no longer, was it just a dream? The question becomes, which realm did I visit? And what did it try to teach me? Because the night is not empty, it is a vast territory waiting to be explored, and you already hold the passport. Not every dream belongs to you. Some nights, when you close your eyes and drift past the veil, you are not entering a private sanctuary, but a contested space. Ancient cultures spoke openly about this. The Gnostics warned of the archons, cunning manipulators of perception. Egyptian texts described the devourers, beings that fed on the essence of the unguarded. In Buddhist tradition, the Mara were tempters, forces that tried to derail the path to awakening. Different names, different times. But the same warning: there are entities in the astral that feed on what you feel. These parasites don't want your body, they want your energy. They thrive on emotion, because in that plane, emotion is not just a passing state, it is substance, it is currency. Fear is their favorite form of payment because it is raw, immediate, and easy to provoke. That's why nightmares so often feel like ambushes designed to shake you. The chase through endless streets, the sudden appearance of a monster, the panic of losing a loved one. These scenarios are crafted to extract a reaction. Each jolt of terror, each wave of despair is a feast for something waiting just beyond your awareness. What makes them dangerous is not only their hunger, but their disguise. Rarely do they appear as hideous creatures. Instead, they take on the shapes you trust most: a parent's face, a long-lost friend, even divine figures cloaked in light. They whisper comfort or demand obedience, weaving illusions that make you surrender willingly. In those moments, the trap is not the dream itself, but your unquestioned belief in it. The ancients taught that ignorance is surrender. To accept every image without discernment is to hand over your energy freely. Yet, knowing their tactics gives you power. If emotion is the currency, then sovereignty over your emotions is the shield. You cannot stop a nightmare from beginning, but you can change how you meet it. When fear rises, pause it. Recognize it as bait. When despair creeps in, remember, it is not the truth, but a net being cast. The moment you choose not to feed the reaction, the parasite starves, the battlefield shifts. What once felt like helplessness becomes training in mastery. This is why traditions across the world emphasized preparation before sleep. Rituals of cleansing, prayers of protection, visualizations of light. These were not superstitions but strategies. They were ways of anchoring the soul so that when confronted with deception, it could stand firm. Even something as simple as setting the intention, "I will not be moved by fear tonight," plants a flag in the astral terrain. You may have noticed it yourself. The night you entered sleep with clarity, you woke lighter. The night you let fear spiral, you woke drained. That is not coincidence. It is evidence of the subtle economy you participate in, whether you know it or not. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. So the next time a dream turns dark, ask yourself, is this really mine, or is it a hook? Stand your ground. Remember that your feelings are yours to command, because the parasites cannot take what you do not give. And once you know that truth, the war at night becomes less about surviving and more about claiming your power. If the silver cord is the lifeline of your soul, then every night you sleep is a voyage upon it. And like any lifeline, it can be strengthened, cared for, made resilient against the forces that would tug and fray it. The ancients did not leave this to chance. They developed rituals, practices, and disciplines to keep that tether bright and unbreakable. And many of those methods remain within reach today. The first and most essential is breath. Before entering sleep, sit quietly and let your breathing deepen. Inhale through the nose, slow and steady. Then exhale as if you are releasing the day itself. Some traditions call this coherence breathing, aligning the heart and the mind into a single rhythm. In that stillness, imagine your cord pulsing with each breath stronger, steadier, a luminous thread glowing with life. Breath is not just air, it is energy. And energy directed with intention feeds the cord. Meditation serves the same purpose. When you still the endless chatter of thought, you remove the static that weakens the connection. Picture yourself surrounded by a sphere of light, your body at the center, the cord extending upward like a beam into the unseen. In that silence, you are not merely visualizing protection, you are creating it. Across time, countless mystics have agreed on this truth. The images you hold with reverence become the structures of your subtle body. Other cultures added more tactile rituals. A salt bath before bed, used by both indigenous and Eastern traditions, was said to cleanse the energy field, stripping away heaviness that could weigh the cord down. Some carved sacred geometry into charms or traced them into sand, believing the shapes harmonized the energy lines. Mantras and prayers, repeated softly, tuned the mind away from fear and into resonance with higher frequencies. These were not empty gestures, but ways of declaring sovereignty over one's inner space. Even simple tools can make a profound difference. A dream journal, kept at your bedside, tells your subconscious that what happens beyond the veil matters. Writing down your dreams each morning sharpens recall, strengthens continuity, and, over time, reveals patterns, the recurring figures, the repeated landscapes, the unfinished lessons. They all become part of your conscious awareness, which in turn empowers your cord. Awareness is reinforcement, and intention is the anchor. Just before sleep, set it clearly. Tonight, I travel with protection. Tonight, my cord is strong. The words need not be complex. The act itself is what matters. Intention shapes experience. It is the compass you hand to your soul before it sets sail. When the cord is strong, your nights change. Dreams sharpen into clarity. Journeys that once left you drained now return, you restored. Instead of stumbling through shadows, you move with a kind of quiet authority, knowing you are tethered to something unbreakable. The body may lie in silence, but the soul walks boldly, certain that it can go far and still find its way home. To care for the cord is to care for your own becoming. Each breath, each ritual, each small gesture of reverence stitches another layer of strength into it. And when it glows bright, when it hums with resilience, your dreams are no longer a gamble. They become a sanctuary, a school, a place of healing, because you are anchored, protected, and fully alive in both worlds. There comes a moment in certain dreams when the world tilts and you realize you are dreaming. You look at your hands, you speak a word, and suddenly the dream bends to your will. For most people, this is a thrill, a playground where you can fly, conjure palaces, or rewrite reality for entertainment. But for the ancients, this state, lucidity, was never meant to be wasted. It was regarded as a sacred initiation, a rite of passage for the soul. In the temples of Egypt, initiates were led into chambers of pitch darkness. There, isolated from sound and light, they were guided into dreams where lucidity could be trained. To awaken inside the dream was to prove readiness for higher knowledge. The Toltec people of Mesoamerica practiced something similar, teaching that the dream world was as real as waking life, and that only those who could remain conscious within it could master both realms. In Tibet, the practice became codified as dream yoga, where monks spent years learning to hold awareness as the dream formed around them, using the state not as escape, but as gateway. Why such reverence? Because lucid dreaming is rehearsal for something greater. Within it, the soul learns to navigate without the anchors of the body. It learns that thought shapes reality instantly, that fear manifests as shadow, that love illuminates paths. The lucid state becomes a mirror of existence itself, condensed into a manageable space. What you master there echoes into waking life. If you can face fear in the dream and choose calm, you can do the same in daylight. If you can heal in the dream, your body may carry traces of that healing when you wake. Accounts from initiates and modern practitioners alike describe encounters that go far beyond fantasy. Some meet teachers, figures robed in light, voices carrying wisdom that rings truer than anything they've read. Others revisit fragments of past lives, re-experiencing choices that shaped who they are now. A few even glimpse probabilities of the future, not fixed fates, but potential paths, unfolding like branches of a tree. To dismiss these as imagination is to miss the point. The value lies in the transformation they spark. The dream becomes a classroom, a temple, a theater of the soul's education, and yet there is danger in trivializing it. To use lucidity only for games, for endless flights of fancy or conjured pleasures, is to squander a rare gift. The ancients warned that distraction is the true thief. Each lucid night is an initiation, whether you treat it as sacred or not. You are being handed the keys to the architecture of reality itself. The question is, will you use them to unlock wisdom or to wander in illusions of your own making? So when lucidity comes, pause it, breathe. Remember that you stand in the doorway of initiation, as countless seekers before you did in temples, pyramids, and monasteries. You are not just a dreamer, you are a participant in an ancient lineage of awakening. And if you choose reverence over distraction, the dream will reveal more than landscapes and stories. It will reveal yourself, your wounds, your potential, your place in the vast weave of time. The night does not hand out toys, it offers thresholds, and lucid dreaming is one of the most powerful of them all. Step through it with intention, and you will not wake the same. Sleep is often pictured as peaceful, but beneath its surface lies a battlefield. When the body rests, the soul enters a contested terrain where forces compete for influence. The weapons are not swords or guns, they are emotions. Every surge of fear, every wave of despair, every spark of hope becomes ammunition. To the untrained sleeper, this war is invisible, but to the ancients, and increasingly to modern seekers, it is the most important conflict you will ever face. Consider the phenomenon of synthetic dreams. Dreams that feel foreign, engineered, as if inserted into your mind. People across cultures describe the same sense of intrusion, a dream that doesn't feel like their own, a story too pointed, too manipulative to be random. In ancient terms, these were illusions woven by astral parasites. In modern language, they resemble broadcasts, manufactured realities designed to provoke specific emotional reactions. Now, with our world saturated by media and technology, the parallel feels even sharper. If corporations can manipulate your waking attention, who is to say, unseen forces cannot do the same in your sleep. This is why so many wake in the morning heavy and drained. The body may have lain still, but the soul has been dragged through skirmishes all night. That groggy fog, that inexplicable fatigue, is not just poor rest, it is energy residue. The aftermath of battles you didn't know you were fighting. You may not remember the details, but your body remembers, your spirit remembers, and each morning is proof that something deeper happened in the hours you thought you were safe. The tragedy is that most never realize it. They accept the exhaustion, dismiss the nightmares, and move on. But recognition is the first act of defiance. To admit that a war is happening is to stop being a casualty and start becoming a participant. You cannot stop every attack, but you can learn to wield your own emotions as shield and sword. Calm, intention, awareness. These are not passive states. They are the very weapons that tip the balance in your favor. So tonight, when you prepare for sleep, do not walk into it blind. Set your intention, protect your cord, anchor yourself in clarity. The silent war will go on whether you acknowledge it or not, but the moment you do, everything changes. You become more than a pawn. You become a sovereign presence, harder to deceive, harder to drain, And if these words strike something in you, if you've ever woken knowing you fought through the night, claim it now. Leave a mark of awareness. Comment, "I understood it," because each declaration strengthens not only you, but a community of souls who refuse to remain asleep while the war rages on. The night may be silent, but your awakening does not have to be. To drift into sleep without awareness is the habit of a world that has trained you to be passive. You are taught that night is simply the body's repair shop, that nothing more happens than the cycling of hormones and dreams with no meaning. But what if choosing to remain conscious, even as your body surrenders, was the quietest, yet boldest act of rebellion you could ever perform? Conscious sleep is more than a practice. It is a declaration. It says, "I will not hand my inner world over to chance, to fear, or to unseen manipulation." It says, "The same way I guard my home by locking the door at night, I will guard the gateways of my soul." No one would leave their front door wide open while they slept. Yet every evening, millions enter unconsciousness with their energetic doors unlocked. Awareness is the key. Intention is the lock. Each night offers you a chance to set that lock. It doesn't take elaborate rituals or hours of meditation. A single clear thought: before you drift, I enter sleep protected. I wake restored acts like a firewall. That intention reshapes your experience, steering your soul away from lower currents and guiding it toward higher realms. The ancients knew this. They spoke of sleep not as surrender, but as sovereignty, the daily rehearsal of your authority as a soul. And here is where rebellion takes its sharpest edge. Systems visible and invisible thrive on unconsciousness. They profit when you stumble through days half awake, when your nights drain you instead of restore you. To sleep consciously is to step outside that system. It is to claim your energy as your own, refusing to feed the economy of fear. Every time you enter the night with awareness, you pull yourself further from being a pawn in someone else's game. The change can be immediate. Tonight, try it. As you lie down, close your eyes and breathe. See yourself wrapped in a cocoon of light. Whisper your intention. Imagine your silver cord glowing bright, untouchably. Anchored, then release, not into unconsciousness, but into conscious rest. When you wake, notice the difference, the clarity, the steadiness, the way fatigue loosens its grip. These are the first signs that rebellion is working. You don't need a movement, a leader, or a banner to revolt. You need only to reclaim the 1/3 of life that most people give away without thought. Conscious sleep is a spiritual rebellion, quiet but unshakable. Tonight, the choice is yours. Will you leave the door open, or will you step into the night as the sovereign keeper of your soul? Every night, the dreams you carry are more than random images flickering in the dark. They are messages, blueprints drafted by your soul. Blueprints that point toward the purpose you came here to live. You may have dismissed them as strange or nonsensical, but the patterns matter. Recurring places, familiar symbols, voices that linger long after you wake. These are not accidents. They are fragments of a larger design, waiting for you to notice. The ancient teacher Thoth insisted that true success was never about accumulation, more wealth, more titles, more possessions. Success was about integration, the weaving together of all that you are across waking life and dreaming life. To ignore your dreams is to live only half of your existence. To listen to them is to discover that your deepest purpose is already whispering to you night after night. Think of how often your days bleed into your nights. A conflict unresolved appears again as a nightmare. A hope unspoken takes shape in a dream where it finally breathes. Sometimes you wake with clarity that surprises you, as if the answer to a problem arrived in the quiet hours while you slept. That is your soul's blueprint in action, reminding you that life is not divided into day and night, but is one continuous lesson. This is why dream journals matter, not as a pastime, but as a sacred practice. Each entry is like a sketch in the blueprint, lines that over time reveal structure. Perhaps the repeating dream of a locked door is not coincidence, but a sign of something you've refused to face. Perhaps the vision of flight is not just fantasy, but a call to rise above limitations. With patience, You begin to see how the architecture of your inner world is shaping the choices of your outer one. So the next time you wake from a dream, don't shrug it off. Sit with it. Ask what part of your purpose it is pointing to. Allow it to be a classroom, a sacred seminar where your soul teaches what your mind is too busy to notice during the day. Because your dreams are not distractions, they are direction, and when you learn to follow them, you stop wandering and start building. The blueprint is already within you. Each night adds another stroke of design. The question is not whether you are dreaming, but whether you are listening, and if you are, you may discover that the life you are meant to live has been unfolding in your sleep all along. Each night is not an ending, but a passage. Sleep is not the pause you were taught to believe, it is a gate, a sacred initiation offered again and again. To stumble through it blindly is to surrender your most powerful hours. To cross it with awareness is to claim your place as a sovereign soul. So as you prepare for tonight, remember this: the veil will fall whether you notice or not, but how you meet it is your choice. Will you enter as a wanderer or as one who knows the path is part of the purpose? Every dream, every flicker of image, every surge of feeling is an invitation to awaken. If these words resonate, share the dreams that have stayed with you. Comment, "I understood it," to anchor your awareness, to remind yourself that you are not just drifting, you are learning, remembering, reclaiming. And when you lie down tonight, set your intention, protect your cord, steady your breath, and walk into the night prepared, because awakening doesn't begin in the morning, it begins before you wake.